if there is anyone. Welcome to another episode of Lit with Lenin. Um, Let me see if there's anyone.
Yeah, we're trying this again.
Okay, there is no one.
Yeah, I don't.
You
Well,
okay?
we just
Hi.
so
Okay, I'll just continue eating until
yeah, just give it a couple of minutes.
This is called a paneer Manchurian, which is like Indo-Chinese, half Indian, half Chinese, really spicy.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Maybe there's an Indo-Chinese restaurant in Boston. I know there's one in New York.
There probably is. Yeah.
So it's like Chinese merchants came to Calcutta and they couldn't quite make Chinese food with the spices, so they just kind of used whatever that was there. And so it's
Oh, so
like,
yeah, so they use Indian spices and
a little bit. It's like literally like a mix.
nice. Yeah, I don't know what's going on because
Am I being banned? I don't know.
I don't know, but like even on. I know YouTube is making changes, and I know that we had issues with the collective channel.
Okay. If you're here on the YouTube, please type something. If you're a watcher, please type.
Yeah, we just need to know that this is actually working.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see it on my end. I'm just not seeing people getting in there.
Me neither. What the hell?
Yeah. I don't know.
If you're seeing it on Twitter, there has to be a way for you guys to comment.
Yeah, you should be able to comment under the either comment on the Twitter or comment on the YouTube. But you know what? I'm looking at this and I feel like, is it lagging? I don't know.
No, it's not lagging.
No.
Well, it is lagging actually.
So I don't know if it's that. Well, it says 95% here, so. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Maybe if we start reading, they will come. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
I don't know. I don't think they'll come if we start reading. Well, I just want to wait. Oh no, we need to use some keywords. Bosch, Destiny, Israel.
But, yeah, be careful saying that.
Bosch, Destiny, TYT, Anna Kasparian.
Anna Kasparian.
Yeah.
What does Cracks Ben do for you?
Yeah, he like has been backing out of all debates. He challenges, and then I'm like, okay, ready whenever you are. But he never is.
He was making the rounds on TikTok for a little bit.
Yeah. I was like, anytime, any day, you pick day, time, place, topic.
You get now since that I mean, we knew like the influencers were getting paid. We knew back in the Twitter days they were, but like now that Taylor Lorenz article came out, I think in the Wired, and it said, it was like, oh, all these people were getting paid like up to $8,000 a month. Like it had for the Democrats, the DNC was paying.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, through a thing like Chorus or something like that. So so now like they're all like scrambling, and then we're on TikTok now, and none of them will debate like the young ones like Dean and Parker and all them. There's a couple of new younger faces coming out, and they will not debate communists. They will not. Like
because they'll always lose when. Okay, so this is what they think. Liberals think that anyone who disagrees with them are smarter than them. And
Yeah.
the minute that you show your extensive knowledge of history and things, they just like block because uh, they can't handle anything more than that. Like,
Yeah.
so liberals can't handle won't debate communists because we know our history and our things. So they're expecting a fight with a Republican.
Yeah.
While we're bringing our Soviet tanks.
Mm-hmm. And it's just so funny to watch them. They're like, no, because they just sit there and talk. Like it's easier to debate a Republican because they don't know what they're talking about. But then, like, the same kid is like knows nothing about politics, knows nothing about
No,
like
I mean,
capitalism, communism.
it's
And
actually like debating a Republican is super easy.
Yeah.
You're like Stalin. They're like Stalin killed 1 billion people. I was like, yes, but all the 1 billion people are Nazis.
Yes.
And that's
Like they bring that up.
I don't try to even deny that. I'm like, yeah, but they're all Nazis. So it's okay.
You get them to say like, oh well, Stalin killed all these people, and we're like, who? And then they'll be like, well, the peasant farmer. No, the kulaks. No, what? Why? And we're like, we don't care. And they're like, well, we care. I'm like, you care that Stalin killed fascists? I don't.
Yeah, no. I basically was like, yeah, like I don't even debate that point. Whatever number they give, I just say that they're all Nazis.
That's one of the good things Stalin did.
No, yeah. I said thank God for. Oh, and then when they say he repressed his dissidents, I said thank God for that because they're all Nazis.
Because there's a couple of things that like it was just either bad science or just bad information, which happens to any leader. So there's a couple of things that maybe he got a little wrong, or he got
no. Then I asked them to name one innocent person.
I know. Well, that's what we say. Name a person.
Name one innocent, and they can't because all the ones that they know are Nazi dickheads. So it's like, okay, if you can't say Stalin unjustly imprisoned people. If you can't even name one, if he imprisoned 1 million, you should be able to name one.
Yeah. And as Marxist Leninists, plenty of us have like said, okay, here's our criticisms of Stalin, and it's like just stuff he got wrong because of bad policy, just like, bad science,
like actually agreeing to the Yalta Agreement and stopping at the 38th parallel instead of going through the whole effing peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was a bad decision. Yeah.
Dying was a second bad decision.
Yeah. So I don't know, like that's the whole thing. Like so you get on these TikTok, and it's so easy to do now because like TikTok used to make you have at least 1,000 followers. Now you can go live like with like
no, but it's funny. Like I've done that, and then it's like, defending Stalin is actually like one of the easiest things to do.
Yeah,
because liberals like that's the thing. We don't half-ass things. He killed 1 million, yes, but 14 million people. This is what I do. If they say he killed some whatever number, it's like there were 18.2 million people in the Wehrmacht. That means he left 10 million Nazis alive. So he clearly did not kill enough. Yeah. And they don't expect you to double down on that. Once you double down, they're just lost.
And at least he wasn't like full out trying to save them all, like United States.
Oh, hi. Okay, we got Cobra. Stella. Oh, yeah. There's a really funny video which we can show. But now that we got Cobra Command, let the fun begin.
Yay! We got a comment. We can begin.
Okay. So last week we were on the Friends of the People still. Что такое друзья народа, как они воюют против соцсетей? Okay, who were the Friends of the People and how they fight the social? And this is an article in reply to Ruskaya Bogatstvo, which means Russian riches, wealth. And we're towards the middle. Okay, let me just share my screen to show people where we are.
Well, it's all right. I can just share mine.
Okay.
Because we're at.
Okay. I'm gonna periodically take breaks to fill in some more Indo-Chinese food. So I hope you guys don't mind, okay?
We're starting at the Russian Narodnik Socialists, but that's like three. It's like here's the graph, and it's like
Okay.
1, 2, 3 step. So that is where we're beginning.
Okay, so let the fun begin.
But we don't need that on the screen, right?
Yeah, we don't need that on the screen. Let's read it. The Russian Narodnik Socialists, as we know. Okay. If I'm reading, I realize. Okay, so my actual camera had it's having that same error, which says camera lens not attaching properly. So I'm using the mini camera, which oh boy, I am crowded here. I am very crowded here. Okay, let's see what we can do. Tell me when I go off screen accidentally.
You're right in the middle of the screen there. So if you can read your screen from that way, then
okay. Russian Narodnik Socialists, as we know, held the opposite view and considered that the cause of oppression of labor in the handicraft industries did not lie in the production relations, which we proclaimed to be based on a principle which precludes exploitation. Which were proclaimed to be based on a principle which precludes exploitation, but in something else, in policy, namely the agrarian and fiscal policy. And wait, let's look at the year. Can somebody figure out what year this was written in? 18. Okay, this is the year. This is the year Tsar Alexander III dies. And 2 years before, he said, Nikki, he's just a boy. He has the mind of a child. He can't handle taking care of the railways. Okay. But namely the agrarian and fiscal policy and so on. The question arises, what was and is the basis of the persistence of this opinion, which has now acquired almost the tenacity of a prejudice? Maybe it's the prevalence of a different concept of production relations in the handicraft industries. Handicraft industries is like people. Where did I put my handicrafts?
Like
I found half of my handicraft.
It's like the crocheting.
Yeah. Where did I put the other half of the handicraft?
What, your hook?
I found both of my handicrafts.
Oh,
Janet's tutoring me on my handicrafts.
Good. We got your hook and your yarn. Yes.
Okay. Not at all. It persists only because no attempt whatsoever has been made to give an accurate and definite description of the facts and real forms of economic organization. It persists only because the production relations are not singled out and submitted to an independent analysis. I think that's a typo there. In a word, it persists solely due to the failure to understand the only scientific method of social science, the materialist method. We can now train the thought of our old socialists. As far as the handicraft industries are concerned, they attribute the cause of exploitations to things lying outside of production relations. As far as large-scale factory capitalism is concerned, they could not help seeing that the cause of exploitation lies precisely in the production relations. The result was an irreconcilable contradiction. Hello, Teresa. Oh, thank God. We have 2 people watching at least. Okay. An incongruity where there is a large-scale capitalism could have come from, since there was nothing. Oh, you were watching. Okay, but then it froze. You didn't make a comment, so we thought you weren't watching, and we were sad. And okay. Okay, let's go back to this. Since there was nothing, let me hide the comments so that I don't act obnoxious. I don't ADHD. The conclusion naturally follows naturally. Failing to understand the connection between our handicraft and capitalist industry, they contrasted the former to the latter as peoples to artificial. But the handicraft industry is just one dude telling 100 people to crochet 100 hats. Like that is no different than the factory industry,
Yeah, I mean,
except that they're less
before-
efficient
yeah,
because the factory can like make 100 hats in 1 hour.
yeah, yeah.
Which has past comprehension. The conclusion follows naturally. Failing to understand the connection between handicraft and capitalist industry, they contrasted the former as to okay. The the idea appears that capitalism contradicts our people's system. That an idea very widespread and quite recently presented to the Russian public in a revised and improved edition by Mr. Nikolayan. That's a fake name, I guess. This idea persists by inertia despite its phenomenal illogicality. Factory capitalism is judged on the basis of what actually is in reality, whereas handicraft industry is judged on the basis of what it might be. So they're using the Narodniks are using dialectical materialism to look at factories and their dreams to look at the handicraft industries.
Hold on 1 second. Teresa gave you a.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not demonetized. Thank you. And she said F right on. I will use the word frack from Babylon. No, no, no. Battlestar Galactica. Or I could use,
Maybe the fracking.
yeah, frack.
I was gonna like the fracking because like fracking's so bad, so it's
Yeah, fracking is worse than the F word.
Yeah, so I
So
kind of
let's
like that they
frack
use
from
fracking.
now on. You're so, okay. The former on the basis on the analysis of the production sphere, the latter without even an attempt to examine the production relations separately. The matter being directly transferred to the sphere of politics. We have only to turn to an analysis of these production relations to find that the people's system consists of the very same capitalist production relation. Well, I have an Indian story that kind of relates to it. So in India, there's a lot of places that advertise khadi, which is like handmade cotton. So with khadi, what you have is instead of like a factory, you press a button and it spins cotton. You have like some 12-year-old boy doing this for the whole day. And like people actually don't understand that it's more exploitive than buying factory made cotton. It's just like some of like Gandhi, like back in the day when the British ruled, it made sense because you were trying to bankrupt British factories. So you handmade your own cotton and told the British to frack off. We ain't buying your factory crap. We're making our own clothes and we're driving you out of business. Back then, that made sense. But now, like, it's like these people who are enhanced to traditions, like advertise khadi clothes, and now it's just a 12-year-old boy doing that instead of pressing a button at a factory. Okay. I hope my examples are relevant.
No, I mean it totally makes sense because you're like, it's also like if you think of it, like I crochet a blanket, it everything that it costs because like it's all handmade, the time that it takes, the this and that, like without a machine doing it, like you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
It's just it takes so much more time and everything, and for me to sell that blanket at the same price that a machine blanket would cost, that would be exploiting myself. You know what I mean? Like I'd be putting.
Yeah, it's often a labor of love. You want to give it to somebody you love or you like, or somebody homeless, or
Yeah.
And as an art, it's a perfectly good art to learn because you learn how to do embroideries. Yeah, but it's not okay. It consists of the very same capitalist production relations, although in an underdeveloped embryonic state, that if we reject the naive prejudice that all handicraftsmen are equal and set forth the difference among them, the difference between the capitalist factory and the works of the handicraftsmen will at times prove to be less than the difference between one handicraftsman and another, and that capitalism does not contradict the people system, but it is the direct and immediate continuation and development of it. Yeah. Eventually, these handicraft, like once the handicraft owner makes enough profit, is going to buy a big wheel, and then you're going to have a factory there. Or a factory is going to drive that handicraftsman out of business, and one of the two things will happen. Perhaps, however, it could be argued that the example quoted is unsuitable. We may be told that the percentage of wage workers in the given case is altogether too high. Footnote. This is scarcely true of industries in the Moscow gubernia. It may be true perhaps with regards to less developed industries in the rest of Russia. But as a matter of fact, the important thing here is not the absolute figures, but the relations they disclose, relations which are bourgeoisie in essence, which do not cease to be such whether their bourgeoisie character is strongly or weakly marked. If you like, I shall take another example, one deliberately chosen for its weak bourgeois character. I take from Mr. Isayev's book on the industries of the Moscow gubernia, the pottery industry, a purely domestic industry, as the professor calls it. The industry may, of course, be taken as representative of small-scale peasant industries. Its technique is the simplest. Its equipment is quite small. You just need a spinning wheel. And the articles it produces is universal and essential use. Well, then, thanks to house-to-house census, the potters giving the same particulars as the previous case, we are in a position to study the economic organization of this industry too. One that is undoubtedly quite typical of the numerous Russian small people's industries. We divide the handicraftsmen into groups, those employing 1 to 3, basically that's like enslaving your daughters, those employing 4 to 5 workers, those over 5 workers. Average number, okay. Percent of wage workers, 19. So that's basically employing your daughters and enslaving your daughters. 65. Obviously, the relations in this industry and similar examples could be quoted indefinitely are bourgeoisie. We find the same breakup arising out of the commodity economy and its specifically capitalist breakup, leading to the exploitation of wage labor, which already plays a primary part in the top group, where 1/8 of all establishments and 30% of the total workers produce nearly 1/3 of the total output, and the productivity of the labor is considerably above average. The production relations are enough to explain the appearance of powers of buyers up. We see how a minority of larger and more profitable establishment and receiving a net income from their laborers of others. In the top group of potters, there is an average of 5.5 wage workers per establishment, accumulating savings while the majority are ruined. And even petty masters, not to mention the wage workers, are unable to make ends meet. It is obvious and inevitable that the latter should be enslaved to the former, inevitable precisely because of the capitalist character of the given production relations. These relations are a product of social labor, organized by the commodity economy, passes into the hands of the individuals, and their hands serves as an instrument for oppressing and enslaving the working people as a means of personal enrichment by the exploitation of the masses. And do not think that this exploitation, this expression, is any less marked because the relations of this kind are still poorly developed. Because I still think enslaving your daughters is still enslaving your daughters. Small restaurants do that too. Be careful, like all the waiters are the daughters.
My father complains that his father owned a bakery, and my father was a slave to his father.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I've lost my place.
Start at quite the contrary. I think we were close to that.
contrary, this only leads to the cruder serf forms of exploitation, to a situation where capital, not yet able to subjugate the worker directly by mere purchase of his labor power at its value, enmeshes him in a veritable net of usurious extortion, binds him to itself by kulak methods, as a result robs him not only of the surplus value but an enormous part of his wages too, and what is more, grinds him down by preventing him from changing his master, and humiliates him by compelling him to regard this as a boon, the fact that capital gives him work. It's obvious not a single worker would ever consent to exchange his status for that of a Russian independent handicraftsman in real people's industry. It's equally obvious that all favorite measures of the Russian radicals either will not in the least affect the exploitation of the working people and their enslavement to capital, and will remain isolated experiments, artels, or will worsen the conditions of the working people, inalienability of allotments, and lastly will refine and develop and consolidate the given capitalist relations, improve the technique loans. The friends of the people, however, will never be able to grasp the fact that despite its general wretchedness and comparatively tiny establishments and extremely low productivity, okay, this was the problem. Techloid shows Woot missed the notification. It's YouTube's fault, not ours.
Yeah, YouTube was definitely acting weird, and then the lagging was weird because it was fine here on the stream. So I think YouTube just was having some issues.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Simply cannot grasp that a capital at a certain relation between people, a relation which remains the same whether the categories under comparison are at a higher or lower level of development. Bourgeoisie economists have never been able to, no, of course they can understand it. They don't want to understand this, and have always objected to such a definition of capital. I recall have one of them writing in Ruskaya Misl, which means Russian mind, about Zieber's book on Marxist theory, quoted this definition: capital is a relation, and indignantly put an exclamation point after it. To regard the categories of bourgeoisie regime as eternal and natural is the most typical of bourgeoisie philosophers. Liberals do that all the time. Oh, yeah. Oh, in the other professor's definition of liberal, he claimed that liberals believe that progress, human progress, have faith in human progress. And it's like, yeah, we don't. Socialists don't. We know there's revolution, counter-revolution. There's like no like magical boom, progress will always get better kind of thing.
Liberalism has like destroyed community, has like destroyed people working together. It was individual rights, and then people believing that they, that they actually had individual rights.
Like, you don't have any rights. I mean, I'm sorry.
No, and it like so.
All rights come from the bullet of from what did Mao say? All rights come from the barrel of a gun.
Gun. Yep. Yep.
Okay. To regard. Okay. That is why for capital too, they adopt such definitions. For example, accumulated labor that serves for further production, that is described as an eternal category of human society, and thereby obscuring that specific historic definite economic formation which this accumulated labor organized by commodity economy falls into the hands of those who do not work and serves for the exploitation of the labor of others. That is why instead of an analysis and a study of a definite system of production relations, they give us a series of banalities applicable to any system mixed with sentimental pap of petty bourgeoisie morality. Like, oh, there shouldn't be a poor people in an ideal. Oh, I remember this one liberal on the Katie Halper show. Like this was during COVID, and I was like, what should Joe Biden do? And I said, I said, price controls. And she's like, oh, this is good in theory. And I'm like, no, Joe Biden. I showed her a video of exactly what Nixon did, and I said, I think Joe Biden should do what Nixon did. And that shut her up, because like she didn't even know that Nixon instituted price controls. Like I had to show that we had to put that show up on the video for her to understand that a president can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But the word banality too, like that like aligns with liberalism so much.
So boring. Yeah.
They always they use the boring to make people like go, oh well, it's just like it can't be evil because it's just so boring.
Well, banality of evil.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't like that woman, she did coin a good word.
Yeah.
Every day, I think it's often here like it's evil, but if it happens every day, all the time, people kind of get used to it and stop getting enraged by it.
Yeah, well, that's what I always like. I always equate like me with the my progressive illness, and that like my body, like I just had to keep accepting things that was happening in my body, but I was just doing that naturally because it was happening, and I would just have to overcome it. But people do that too. Like we just adapt, so things just keep getting worse, and we're like, okay, that's how it is, and we just keep accepting it instead of fighting against it and allowing it because it doesn't, because it's gradual, because it, but now like Trump's in, and it seems like things are getting thrown at us because the liberal media is like showing exactly what Trump's doing, where they don't do that with the Democrats.
What Trump is doing, not completely.
Yeah.
They're not showing the color revolution that he's trying to do in Indonesia.
Yep. What's going on in Serbia? Is that like a color revolution happening?
That's like an attempted but failing color revolution. Okay. Hungary, they're really, really. I actually wrote this article. I'm not an Orban fan, but Hungary's sovereignty is more important than like they try to have this like rock star Peter Magyar, and his like he wanted to force conscript like people into a European army, and it's like this sounds like the Fourth Reich. Yeah. Anyways, okay, now look at why do the Friends of the People call this industry people's, and why do they contrast to a capitalist industry? It is only because these gentlemen are petty bourgeois ideologists and cannot even conceive that these small producers live and operate under a system of commodity economy. And that is why I call them petty bourgeoisie, and their relations to the market necessarily and inevitably split them into bourgeoisie and proletariat. Why don't you try studying a real organization? Our people's industries, instead of phrasemongering about what they might lead to, then we will see whether you can find in Russia any branch of handicraft industry at all developed which is not organized on capitalist lines. I can tell you in India, there's a carpet making industry, and it's again a 12-year-old boy doing this instead of like having a machine. And it's just it's like some exploitive boss, and then they sell, like they go to really poor people, and then they basically sell their children to slavery. Yeah. And if you do not agree that monopolizing I mean, so like when you have one boss employing 4 slaves, is that anything different than a factory employing 1,000 slaves? It's still the same. One boss employing the 4 slaves is probably crueler than the factory.
Yeah, because you're like right there with them, like them personally. The CEO, that's like I've worked for plenty of CEOs like in the company who has no clue who's out there on the floor, who has like no clue of anyone's name or anything like that. Like, so what is it better for you to act like, oh, we're family and I care about you, and then you're exploiting them, or the one, the one just doing the exploitation?
Okay. Teresa said the cost is more than financial. It's depletion of dopamine, means disability and the early death. You're right. And if you agree, am I being heard?
I can hear you.
I think whenever you mute yourself, everything goes quiet, and I get scared that I'm not being heard.
Oh, do you want me to just leave it on? I just wanted the background noise not to be there because I know it's raining outside, so you guys.
Oh no, no, there's a big parade going outside because they're okay. So in the Ganesha festival, after the fifth day, they have to take the Ganesha and put him in the river so the clay Ganesha dissolves.
Yeah.
Just like sending him back home.
Aw.
Okay. Actually, it's to organize. I forgot. If you
Good.
do not agree with that the monopolizing of the means of production by a minority, their alienation for the majority, and the exploitation of wage labor, speaking more generally, the essence of capitalism is appropriation by individuals of the product of social labor organized by commodity economy, are necessary and adequate features for this concept. Then be good enough to give your own definition for your own history of capitalism. Actually, the organization of our people's handicraft industries furnishes an excellent illustration to the general history of development of capitalism. It clearly demonstrates the latter's origin, its inception, for example, in the form of simple cooperation. The top group of whatever, the top group in the pottery industry. It further shows how the savings that, thanks to the commodity economy, accumulate in the hands of separate individuals become capital, which first monopolizes the markets, buyers up and traders, owing to the fact that this is the I can't pronounce their word.
Sorry, monosopolies or something.
No, manasapni.
I don't know where I lost our spot. Sorry.
Help somebody pronounce it.
Actually, I don't. Where are you? Which first monopolizes marketing, buyers up and trading.
No. I'm. Look at the comments. I typed it out. Somebody pronounce it for me.
Monopsopny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's just.
Monosopny.
It's the opposite of a monopoly when all the workers are forced to work for one employer.
Okay.
So if there's like one trader, all these independent handicraftsmen have to sell their handicrafts to that one guy.
Monosopny. Okay. I don't know. However you pronounce it. I mean, I just learned that word 2 weeks ago when he first brings it up. I never even knew that word before.
The only owners of these savings possess the necessary funds for wholesale disposal, which enables them to wait until the goods are sold in distant markets. However, further, this merchant capital enslaves the mass of the producers and organizes capitalist manufacture, the capitalist domestic of large-scale production, and how finally the expansion of the market and increasing competition lead to improved techniques, and how merchant capital becomes industrial capital and organizes large-scale machine production. And when this capital, having grown strong and enslaved millions of working people and whole districts, begins openly and brazenly to exert its pressure on the government and turns it into its lackey, our ingenious friends of the people raise a howl about implanting of capitalism and its artificial creation. Okay, by the way, so in Tsarist Russia, there's something called an Article 79. Where is Article 79? Okay, basically, it makes it like a crime against the state to found it. Okay. Amendments to the Penal Code stipulated that collective resistance to the employer would be treated as an uprising against the state. Article 79A. Punishable with 15 to 20 years of hard labor, and strikes to raise wages would be punishable with imprisonment from 3 weeks to 3 months for the instigators and 7 days to 3 weeks for others. So basically, they equated striking against your employer as treason.
Yeah.
And that is because the capitalists had the ear of the Tsar, and the Tsar was like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And this is where Lenin talks about
Did
Yeah.
that last all the way up to like 1917? That article?
Yeah. And this is where Lenin talks about regulatory capture, which we have, like having uh, having like weapons manufacturers be the head of the Department of War, which I like that change because we ain't defending anything in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. Say call it like it is. I don't really care if they call it that, but
I like that word. I think the Department of War is great.
yeah.
Yeah, but basically that, like, you get, this is what he means, like when the capitalists, like, then they'll buy the government, the government will change the laws for the capitalists, so you get the regulatory capture, and the capitalists start owning the government, not the other way around.
Yeah.
A timely discovery indeed. So when Mr. Krivenko talks about people's real proper industry, he's simply trying to conceal the fact that our handicraft industries are nothing but capitalism at various stages of development. Absolutely. And okay, so when you have like 100 handicraft bosses like going to the same trader, he can dictate the prices to whatever he wants because there's no one else who's gonna buy it up.
Yeah.
And eventually
Mm-hmm.
eventually it's going to be replaced by that fact. I mean, eventually these workers are going to go out of business because the factory is going to undercut their prices.
You know what kind of like fits this too is like that whole like how people were like buying houses and turning them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
That totally fits because you just kept turning houses to get more money to buy another house, to turn it to get more money to buy another house. Like it was like that happens too without, you're exploiting the people, not so much workers in that, except for if you have like certain people that are doing the work on the houses for you. But I mean, like in the same sense, that kind of does the same thing, but it's
and
that
all foreclosed upon by the bank.
yeah, it's all like just having that mindset. Like people are always like, oh, you could just start a business. And I'm like, I don't want to exploit people. Like,
no, you can start a business without exploiting people.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I know that, but they mean like to get ahead, you would have like the way
yeah. Oh yeah, no. Small businesses are the worst exploiters, and then they start with their family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when Mr. Krivenko talks about people, he simply the handicap are nothing but we have already become sufficiently acquainted with these methods. In the case of Mr. Yuzhikov, which we learned in the last book, who instead of studying peasant reform, used empty phrases about the fundamental aim of the momentous manifesto. So Tsar Alexander II had this manifesto where it's like, the czars always call themselves we, not me. Oh no, literally me, but me in Russian means we.
Mm-hmm.
And we free the serfs, but they have to like buy their own freedom. Like it was kind of, he made it seem like he's actually freeing the serfs, but he didn't really free the serfs. If you have to buy your own freedom, how the frack is a peasant going to buy his own freedom? Or he had to like work for another 49 years. Like it was just like it was not. They just changed the name, basically.
Yeah. You if you don't have the money to buy your own freedom, you're stuck there, and then they're never going.
How on earth will a slave have the money to buy his own freedom?
You're never going to. They're going to make it so that you can never buy your freedom.
Yeah.
And even so, like if you're working for someone and you want to start your own business, and the person you're working for gets that sense, they can start making it hard for you to like have money to be able to buy your business.
Yeah. Who instead of studying land renting dubbed it people's renting? Who instead of studying how a home market is formed for capitalism philosophized about the latter's inevitable collapse from the lack of markets and so on. To show how far Messrs. The Friends of the People distort facts, I shall dwell on one more example. Although this example, this is not that important of a footnote. Our subjective philosophers so rarely condescend to give us precise references to fact that it would be unfair to ignore one of these most precise references of theirs, namely the one Mr. Krivenko makes in number 1, 1894, to the budgets of Voronezh peasants. Here, on the basis of the data selected by themselves, we may make quite sure which kind idea of reality is more correct. That of the Russian radicals and the friends of the people, or that of the Social Democrats. Mr. Sherbin, that has to be a typo because Sherbina means Mrs. Sherbina,
Yeah.
or it's either Mrs. Sherbina or Mr. Sherbin. I don't know which one it is. A Voronezh Zemstvo petition, his, so Mr. Sherbin, a Voronezh Zemstvo petition appends to his description of peasant farming in Ostrogozhsk Uyezd 24 budgets of typical peasant households and analyzes them in the text. Okay. Mr. Krivenko reproduces this analysis, failing or rather refusing to see that the methods are entirely unsuited to the purpose of getting an idea of the economy of our peasant farmers. The fact that these 24 budgets depict entirely different households, prosperous, middle, and poor, as Mr. Krivenko points out himself, but Mr. Sherbin, he employs average figures. That's like saying the average Harvard student makes $35 billion just because you added Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates into it.
Yeah.
Like you have to remove that's right. You have to remove the outliers.
You need a median.
Median, or remove the outliers.
Yeah. Lumping together. That's where you were. Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
I lost my place.
All right, you're at lumping together.
The most different types of households, and thus completely disguises the fact of their differentiation. Yet the differentiation of our small producers is such a general and such a major fact to which the Social Democrats have long been drawing the attention of Russian socialists. See works of Plekhanov. That is brought out quite distinctly even by the scanty data selected by Mr. Krivenko. Instead of dealing with the farming of the peasants and dividing them into categories according to the size of their farms and types of farming, he, like Mr. Sherbin, divides them into legal categories: former state and former landlord peasants, directing all his attention to the greater prosperity of the former as compared with the latter, and loses sight of the fact that the differences among the peasants within these categories are far greater than the differences between these categories. I mean, by that, if you were owned by the state versus owned by the landlord, it doesn't even matter. Like he's studying peasants by comparing slaves who are owned by the state versus slaves who are owned by private landlords, and there's really no difference between
Just
that.
all slaves. Yeah.
They're still slaves. To prove this, I divided these 24 budgets into 3 groups. I picked out 6 prosperous peasants and then 11 average prosperity, numbers 7 to 10, 6 to 22 in Mr. Sherbin's table, and see 7 poor peasants, number 11 to 15, and 23 and 24 in Mr. Sherbin's table of budgets. Mr. Krivenko says, for example, that the expenditure per farm on the former state peasants is 541 rubles and 3 kopecks, and the former landlord peasants is 417 rubles and 7 kopecks. But he overlooks 70 kopecks and 30 kopecks. Not that it matters. But he overlooks the fact that the expenditures of different peasants are far from being equal. Among the former state peasants, for example, there is one expenditure of 84.7 rubles, with another with an expenditure 10 times as large, 887.4 rubles. even if we leave out the German colonists, which there are like 1,000 of them, 5 of them, or whatever.
Two. There's a
No,
couple.
there's like a very small, like they don't matter. Like you can just erase them. Like they're
Yeah,
statistically less
1,500.
than 1%.
Yeah.
What meaning can an average have if it's derived by lumping such magnitudes together? If we take a division into categories that I give, we find that the expenditure per farm of a prosperous peasant is 855.86 rubles, middle peasant is 461 rubles, and a poor peasant is 223 rubles. That ratio is 4 to 1. So it's exponential. Let us proceed following Mr. Sherbin's footstep. Mr. Kirilenko gives an expenditure on personal requirements among various legal categories of peasants. Oh, wait, I got an idea. Let's show the creepy crossing while I finish eating.
You want to show that now? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, last week I promised that, right?
2 weeks ago, because we didn't do
2
it.
weeks ago, I promised creepy crossing.
Okay, so this is creepy crossing. Let me.
Yeah, this is how I crossed in India, and I promised that, and I delivered.
Let me see if I can. Here we go. Share. And I don't know if this is gonna play the noise though.
It doesn't need to play the noise. Just assume it's like really, really, really loud, and everyone's honking their horns, and they're like, brr. Oh, I can play the. Okay.
Here's me draining it.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on. I have to get back to it. Too many screens open. Okay.
I decided to really cross with. Now he's stepping away from him because I'm getting too close. So now, see, I'm copying what he's doing because I have no idea whether it's safe or not. But that's how I creepily cross the street in India.
I muted myself because I didn't know if the noise was doubling. Yeah. Do you want me to read a little bit, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So where were we?
We were at let us proceed.
Okay, let us proceed. Following in Sherbin's footsteps, Mr. Kirilenko gives an expenditure on personal requirements among the various legal categories of peasants. Among the former state peasants, for example, the annual expenditure per person on vegetable food is 13.4 rubles. And among the former landlords' peasants, 12.2 rubles. But if we take them according to economic categories, the figures are A, 17.7, B, 14.5, and C, 13.1. The expenditure on meat and dairy produce per person among the former landlords' peasants is 5.2 rubles, and among the former state peasants, 7.7 rubles. Taken by economic categories, the figures are 11.7, 5.8, and 3.6, respectively.
So rich people get more meat and vegetables?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
It is obvious that calculation according to legal categories merely conceals these huge divergences and nothing more. It is therefore obviously worthless. The income of the former state peasants is greater than the income of the former landlords' peasants by 53.7%, says Mr. Kirilenko. The general average for the 24 budgets is 539 rubles. And for the two categories, over 600 rubles and about 400 rubles, respectively. But if graded according to the economic strength, the incomes are A, 1,053.2 rubles, B, 473.8 rubles, and C, 202.4 rubles, or a fluctuation of 10 to 2 and not 3 to 2.
And the state and the church were the two biggest slave owners in Tsarist Russia.
Mm-hmm. So this is a quote by Mr. Korovenko. The capital value of the peasant farming among the former state peasants is 1,060 rubles, and among the former landlords peasants is 635 rubles, says Mr. Korovenko. But if we take the economic categories, the figures are A, 1,737.91 rubles, B, 786.42 rubles, and C, 363.38 rubles. Again, a fluctuation of 10 to 2 and not 3 to 2. By dividing the peasantry into legal categories, the author prevented himself from forming a correct judgment of the economies of this peasantry.
Exactly. Like I said, it doesn't matter who like enslaves you. It's going to
You're still being
slave.
enslaved.
Yeah. So I don't even know why he cared. Like why it mattered whether he was a state peasant or a landlord peasant.
If we examine the farms of the various types of peasants according to the economic strength, we find that the prosperous families have an average income of 1,053.2 rubles, an expenditure of 855.86 rubles, or a net income of 197.34 rubles. The middle family has an income of 473.8 rubles and an expenditure of 471.61 rubles, or a net income of 2.19 rubles per farm, and that without counting credit debts and arrears. Obviously, it can barely make ends meet. Out of the 11 farms, 5 have a deficit. The bottom poor group run their farms at a direct loss. With an income of 202.4 rubles, their expenditure is 223.78 rubles, which means a deficit of 21.38 rubles.
So okay, so basically 1 ruble was approximately equal to like back in the day, like $88 today. Yeah.
So it is evident that if we lump farms together and strike a general average net income negative 44.11 rubles, we completely distort the real picture. We then overlook the fact, as Mr. Korovenko has done, that all the 6 prosperous peasants who secure a net income
sample size of 6
secure a net income employ farm laborers, 8 of them, a fact that reveals the character of their farming. They are in process of becoming capitalist farmers, which yields them a net income and reveals them almost entirely of the need to resort to industries. These farmers altogether cover only 6.5% of their budget by industries, 412 rubles out of a total of 6,319.5. Moreover, these industries, such as Mr. Sherbin in one place remarks, are of such a type of carting or even dealing in sheep that is such as, far from indicating dependence, presuppose the exploitation of others. Precisely in the second case, accumulated savings are converted into merchant capital. These peasants own 4 industrial establishments, which yield an income of 320 rubles, 5% of the total. The economy of the middle peasant is of a different type. They, as we have seen, have barely make ends meet. Farming does not cover their needs, and 19% of their income is from so-called industries. What sort of industries these are, we learned from Mr. Sherbin's article. They are given for 7 peasants, only 2 engage in independent industries, tailoring and charcoal burning. The remaining 5 sell their labor power when mowing in the lowlands, works at the distillery, does day laboring at harvest time, herds sheep, works on the local estate. These are already half peasants, half workers. So like because they're doing,
They can't.
they have their own farm,
Can't
but they.
actually till their farm if they're like herding sheep and making whiskey
Mhm.
or vodka or whatever they're making in the distillery.
So side occupations divert them from their farming and thus undermine it completely. As to the poor peasants, they farm at a dead loss. The significance of industries in their budgets is still greater, providing 24% of the income. And these industries amount almost entirely, except for in the case of one peasant, to the sale of labor power. In the case of 2 of them, industries, farm laboring, predominate, providing 2/3 of their income. It is quite clear that what we have here is a process of the complete differentiation of the small producers, the upper groups of whom are being turned into the bourgeoisie, the lower into the proletariat. Naturally, if we take general averages, we shall see nothing of this and get no idea of the economics of the countryside.
Exactly. Like average Harvard graduate and has $35 billion.
Mm-hmm. It was only his operations with these fictitious averages that enabled the author to adopt the following method to determine the place of these typical farms in the peasant farming of the Uyezd as a whole. Mr. Sherbin groups the peasants according to the size of their allotments. And it transpires that the level of prosperity, general average, of the 24 farms selected is higher by about 1/3 than the average in the Uyezd. This calculation cannot be regarded as satisfactory, both because there is great divergence among these 24 peasants and because the classification according to the size of allotment conceals the differentiation of the peasantry. The author's thesis that the allotments are the prime cause of the prosperity of the peasant is absolutely wrong. Everybody knows that the equal distribution of land within the village community does not in any way prevent its horseless members from giving up the land, letting it, going away to work and turning into proletarians, or the members with many horses from renting large tracts of land and running big and profitable farms. If, for example, we take our 24
But
budget,
24 seems like a very, very small sample size, too.
yeah, we shall see that one rich peasant with 6 descatines of allotment land has a total income of 758.5 rubles. A middle peasant with 7.1 descatines of allotment land has 391.5 rubles. And a poor peasant with 6.9 descatines of allotment land, 109.5 rubles.
That's because the rich peasant takes the allotment land of the middle and the poor peasant, basically, and keeps it all to himself.
In general, we have seen that the ratio of the incomes of the various groups is 4 to 2 to 1, while the ratio of the allotment land is 22.1 to 53.2 to 8.5, which equals 2.6 to 1.08 to 1. This is quite natural, for we find, for example, that the rich peasants with 22.1 desatines of allotment land per household rent an additional 8.8 desatines each, whereas the middle peasants who have smaller allotments, 9.2 desatines, rent less, 7.7 desatines, and the poor peasants with still smaller allotments, 8.5 desatines, rent only 2.8 desatines. And so when Mr. Kravchenko says, unfortunately, the data given by Mr. Sherbin cannot serve as an accurate measure of the general state of affairs, even in the UIS, let alone the gubernia. All that we can say is that they cannot serve as a measure only when you resort to the wrong method of calculating general averages, a method which Mr. Kravchenko should not have resorted to. But that, generally speaking, Mr. Sherbin data are so comprehensive and valuable that they enable us to arrive at correct conclusions, and that if Mr. Kravchenko has not done so, it is not Mr. Sherbin who is to blame.
And we see the same pattern. Rich people make more money. Rich people have everything. Poor people have, when you don't have any draft animals.
Yeah.
Okay. There can be no doubt that the general averages of the typical 24 farms are superior to the general run of peasant farms in the US. But if instead of these fictitious average, we take economic categories, a comparison becomes possible. We find that farm laborers on typical farms are somewhat below the peasants who have no draft animals, obviously, but approach them very closely. Well, I mean, okay, so a farm laborer is somebody who couldn't hold on to his farm and had to just kind of give it away, or sell it, rent it somewhere, something really cheap. But a person who owns the farm without a draft animals meant he could somehow manage by renting horses and cows or whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a little bit better off, but soon this guy's going to join that guy any day.
Yeah.
The poor peasant approximate very close to the owners of one draft animal. The number of, okay, so you need actually, like, I think Lenin said 4 for a tract. Or 6. Did Lenin say 4 or 6? I can't remember from last time.
I thought it was, I don't know. I think it was closer to 4.
Yeah, it was 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, then they share. Okay. So if there's like one horse or one well, I don't think you can mix horses and can you? No, but whatever. People with 4 horses like share their horses, and it takes 4 times as long to plow all they're all 4 land, and so on. I think that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The number of cattle is less than 0.2, and by the poor peasants have 2.8, and 1 horse peasants 3. But on the other hand, their total allot land, both allotment and rented, is somewhat more, 12.6 dесятines against 10.7. How much? What did Lenin say? You need 16 to eat, right?
For a family of 4, you needed, something like 16.
Okay.
I gotta get all these. I'll get these numbers down.
No, Lenin said that in the piece.
No. I'll relook at them for next week.
Okay. The middle peasants are only slightly above with 2 or 3 draft animals, and there are slightly more cattle and little less land. While the prosperous peasants approximate to those who have 4 or more draft animals, they don't have to share. They can just have their draft animals go bzzz, being a little below them. We are therefore entitled to draw the conclusion in the UIS as a whole, not less than 1/10 of the peasants engage in regular, profitable farming and have no need for outside work. Their income, it is important to note, is expressed in money and therefore presupposes agriculture of a commercial nature. To a large extent, they conduct their farming with the help of hired laborers. Not less than 1/4 of all households employ regular farm laborers, and the number of employing temporary day laborers is not known. More than half the peasants in the US are poor. Nearly 6/10 are horseless and 1-horse peasants. 57.3%, who conducted their farming at a dead loss and are consequently sinking into ruin, steadily and inexorably being expropriated. They're obliged to sell their labor power, and about 1/4 of the peasants already gain their livelihood more by wage labor than by agriculture. The remaining middle peasants who carry on somehow at farming at a regular loss made up by outside earnings probably their son who sent them some money, who consequently have no economic stability whatsoever. I have deliberately dwelt on these data in detail in order to show how distorted Mr. Kirilenko's picture of the real situation. Without stopping to think, he takes general averages and operates with them. Naturally, the result is not even a fiction, but a downright falsehood. We have seen, for example, that the net income 197.34 rubles of a prosperous peasant from among the typical budgets covers deficits of 9 poor households. So that 10% of the rich peasants in the Uyezd will not only cover the deficits of the 57% of the poor peasants and even yield a certain surplus. And that means eventually that rich peasant's going to take their land and
Yeah.
and their livelihood and everything from them.
Hmm.
Well, I don't. Yeah. And Mr. Kirilenko deriving the average budgets of the 24 farms a surplus of 44.14 rubles, or deducting credit debts and arrears 57.97 rubles, simply speaks of the decline of the middle and lower than middle peasants. Actually, however, one can talk of the decline only in reference perhaps to the middle peasants, whereas the case of the mass poor peasants, we observe direct expropriation, and moreover, by the concentration of the means of production in the hands of the minority who own comparatively large, firmly established farms. Because he ignored the latter, the author has failed to observe another very interesting feature of these budgets, namely that they likewise prove the differentiation of the peasantry is creating a home market. On the one hand, we pass from the top group to the bottom. We observe the growing importance of income from industries, 16.5, 18.8, 23.6 of the total budget of the prosperous, middle, and poor peasants, respectively. That is chiefly from the sale of labor hand. On the other hand, as we pass from the bottom to the top groups, we observe the growing commodity, nay, more bourgeoisie, as we have seen, the character of agriculture, an increase in proportion of produce disposed of. The total income from agriculture of the categories is A. The denominator indicates part of the income. What does the numerator indicate then?
The denominator indicates the money part of the income, which constitutes
A fairly complex calculation was required to arrive at the money from agriculture. It was necessary to exclude from the total income from crops the income derived from straw chaff, which according to the author is used as cattle feed. The author himself excludes them in chapter XVIII. I've never learned normal Roman numerals, but the only total figures for the Uyezd are not given for the 24 households. Taking his chief figures, number one, determine the proportion of income from grain compared with the total income from the crops, both the grain from the straw and the chaff. On the basis of the excluded straw and chaff in this place, the proportion of rye is 78.98%. For wheat is 72.67%. For oats and barley, 73.3%. For the millet and buckwheat, 77.78%. The amount of grain sold was determined by excluding the amount consumed by themselves. Okay, so it's the amount of grain produced by the amount of grain sold.
Yeah, like how much the grain is worth and how much is sold. So like
how much you make versus how much you actually sell, because some you have to feed your cattle and stuff.
Oh, okay, all right. So like the first group is selling 45.9%. The middle group is selling 28.3%. And then the lower group is only selling 20%.
And there's a typo here. They flipped the numerator and denominator and
yeah.
Okay.
I see what happens. Okay.
Here again, we clearly see how the means of production taken expropriated from peasants turns into capital. It is quite obvious that Mr. Kirilenko could not draw conclusions from the material used or misused in this way. After describing the minority character of peasant farming in Novgorod gubernia on the basis of what he was told by a peasant. Hello, Final Forest. Yeah, it's YouTube's fault today.
Why are you shutting off the chat so that you don't get? Go ahead.
Okay, so ADHD.
I know.
Okay. After describing the money character of the peasant farming in Novgorod gubernia on the basis of what was told by a peasant from those parts with whom he traveled by rail, he was forced to draw the correct conclusion that it is precisely this circumstance, commodity economy, that cultivates special abilities and gives rise to one preoccupation: to get the hay mown as cheaply as possible and to sell it as most expensively as possible. This serves as a school which awakens and refines commercial gifts. Talented people come to the fore to become the Kulupai. Okay, can you read this while I figure out who these people are?
Okay, talented people come to the fore to become the Kulipayevs, the Duranovs, and other types of bloodsuckers, while the simple-hearted and simple-minded fall behind, deteriorate, become impoverished, and pass into the ranks of farm laborers. I'm just assuming that they became rich.
Okay. So, Ufimsky. Okay. Okay, so it seems like outside of Lenin, no one knows who Kulupiev and like.
Well, it sounds like to me they would just be the ones that they're, he's
Oh,
named.
okay, no. I found a Dernov. Okay, Okay, Konstantin Nikolaevich Derunov.
Was he the greatest kulak to ever live?
No. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, go.
You want me to keep reading?
Please keep reading.
Okay. The data for the gubernia, in which entirely different conditions prevail, and agricultural one, Voronezh, led to exactly the same conclusions. One would have thought the situation was quite clear. The system of commodity economy stands out distinctly as the main background of the economic life of the country in general and of the community peasantry in particular. The fact also stands out that the commodity economy, and it alone, is splitting the people and the peasantry into a proletariat. They become ruined, enter the ranks of the farm laborers, and the bourgeoisie, bloodsuckers, i.e., that it is turning into capitalist economy. But the friends of the people never dare look realities in the face and call a spade a spade. That would be too harsh. And Mr. Kravchenko argues as follows. Some people consider this state of affairs quite natural. He should have added a quite natural consequence of the capitalist character of production relations. Then it would have been an accurate description of the views of some people. And then it would have been impossible for him to dispose of these views with empty phrases. And he would have had to make a real analysis of the matter. When the author did not deliberately set out to combat these some people, he himself had to admit that money economy is precisely the school that produces talented bloodsuckers and simple-hearted farm laborers. And regard it to the irresistible, this goes back into the into Kravchenko, and regard it as an irresistible mission of capitalism. Okay. Back to Len. Well, of course, to believe that the struggle has to be waged against this school and the bloodsuckers who dominate it, together with their administrative and intellectual lackeys, is to consider that capitalism cannot be overcome. But to leave the capitalist school with its bloodsuckers in complete immunity and to want to eliminate its capitalist products by means of liberal half measures is to be a true friend of the people. We look at the matter somewhat differently. Capitalism undoubtedly does play an important part here, as we pointed out above.
Okay. These are not real people. Okay. Okay, so Kulopiev, like others, Dedonov, and are characters from Saltkov Sheridan's The Refuge, are shrewd people who understand. They're kind of like Shylock from the Merchants of Venice.
Okay. Yeah. So they're just they're literary characters, but they mean
Yeah, got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I got obsessed over that.
So capitalism undoubtedly does play an important part here, as we pointed out above. This refers to the remark about the school of bloodsuckers and farm laborers. But it cannot be said that its role is so all-embracing and decisive that no one factors are responsible for changes taking place in the national economy, and that the future holds out to other solutions. So that was on page 160. So that was a conversation between about Kravchenko's quote, and then Lenin was adding his own little remarks there. Okay. So there you are. Instead of giving an exact and straightforward description of the present system, instead of giving a definite answer to the question of why the peasantry is splitting into bloodsuckers and farm laborers, Mr. Kravchenko disposes of the matter with meaningless phrases. This is Kravchenko. It cannot be said that the role of capitalism is decisive. Why? That is the whole question. Can it be said or can it not? To uphold your opinion, you should have indicated what other factors are decisive, what other solution there can be besides the one indicated by the Social Democrats, namely the class struggle of the proletariat against the bloodsuckers. And once again, the Social Democrats here are what become the communists, really. So Social Democrats of today. But nothing is indicated, unless perhaps the author regards the following as an indication. Assuming and maybe expect anything from the friends of the people. You want to
Okay,
start?
so can you? Okay. Tipa, can you? Is this text big enough for you to read?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me move the camera here. Start here, and can you start reading this text?
Yeah, the first.
Hi.
Hi, this is my.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, we are going through lunar eclipse right now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
okay. Friends of the people here.
Yeah,
First,
the
I can make it.
the first two.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, here. Is it or bigger? Is this big enough?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Can you read?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can read.
Go ahead.
The first to fall into decline.
Sorry, I kind of messed it up for him. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first to fall into decline, as we have seen, are the weak forums.
I'll make it as big as you need.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Weak forums, poor in land, namely
Do you want to go get your
with
glasses?
with allotments of less than 5.
That's a
Less
team.
than 5.
Hold on. I am trying to make it big enough for him because he doesn't.
Yeah.
The
Is
glasses.
this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very much. The first allotments of less than 5 decian
Decitines. That's like
decitines, but the typical farm of the state peasants with allotments of 15 to 15.7 deciantis
It's a decitines.
decitins are distinguished for their stability. True, to secure such an income, a net income of 80 rubles, they rent an additional 5 decitins, but that only shows what they need. what does this amendment, which links up the notorious land poverty with capitalism, amount to? Only to this, that those who have little little to
And
lose a
little, no, those who have little lose that little.
lose that little, while those who have much, 15.7 dissidents each, acquire still more. But then this is a meaningless paraphrase of the statement that some sink into ruin while others grow rich. It is high time to abandon this meaningless talk about land poverty, which explains nothing, because the peasants are not given allotments free but have to buy them. It only describes a process, and moreover describes it inaccurately, because one should not speak about the land alone, but about the means of production in general, and not say that the peasants have a poor supply of them, but that they are being freed from them, or being expropriated by growing capitalism. We have no intention of saying, Mr. Krivenko remarks, concluding his philosophical discourse, that agriculture should and can, under all circumstances, remain natural and separated from manufacturing industry. Another phrase was
Was it?
another phrase, was it not you who were just obliged to admit that a school of money economy already exists, which presupposes exchange and consequently the separation of agriculture from manufacturing industry? Question mark. Why again this sloppy talk of what can be and what should be? All we say is that to create a separate industry artificially is irrational. It would be interesting to know, is the industry of the Kimri and Pavlova
Those are two areas.
handicraftsmen separate, and who artificially created it, and how and when? And that the separation of the laborer from the land and the instruments of production is being affected not by capitalism alone, but also by other factors that precede and promote it. Here, most likely, he again had in mind the profound idea that if the laborer is separated from the land, which passes into the hands of the bloodsucker, this happens because of the former is poor and the latter is rich in land. And this kind of philosophy charges the social democrats with narrowness for regarding capitalism as decisive factor. I have dwelt once more in such detail on the differentiation of the peasants and the handicraftsmen just because it was necessary to bring out clearly how the social democrats picture the matter and how they explain it. It was necessary to show that the facts which to the subjective sociologists mean that the peasants have grown poor while the money chasers and bloodsuckers de- derive profits for their own advantage. To the materialist mean the bourgeois differentiation of the commodity producers necessitated by commodity production itself. It was necessary to show what factors serve as the basis for the thesis quoted above in part 1, that the struggle between the propertied and the propertyless is going on everywhere in Russia, not only in the mills and factories, but even in the most remote villages. That and that everywhere the struggle is one between bourgeois and the proletariat that emerge as a result of commodity economy. The breakup, the
Depeasantization. So when the peasants are
depeasantization,
so poor, they just have to give up their land and go work in the factories.
depeasantization of our peasants and handicraftsmen, which can be depicted accurately thanks to the admirable material provided by Zemstovo statistics.
Zemstvo is like a little team of administrators in each area in
Okay,
Zaragoza.
Zemstovo statistics furnishes factual proof of the correctness of precisely the social democratic conception of Russian reality. The conception that the peasant and the handicraftsman are petty producers in the categorical meaning of the term, that is are petty bourgeois. This thesis may be called the central point of the theory of working class socialism as against old peasant socialism, which understood neither the conditions of commodity economy in which the petty producers live nor their capitalist differentiation due to these conditions. And therefore, whoever wanted to criticize social democracy seriously should have concentrated on his argument on this and shown that from the angle of political economy, Russia is not a system of commodity economy, that it is not this which causes the breakup of the peasantry, and that the expropriation of the mass of the population and the exploitation of the working class can be explained by something other than bourgeois capitalist organization of our social, including peasant economy.
So Asha, when he's saying working class socialism, he just means like communism.
Well, communism wasn't there. There were still social democrats. What he means is not what. Okay, so Narodniks had this really stupid idea where, like, if you just had more handicraft industries and more, like, they didn't understand that industrialization was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by working class socialism, he means not Narodnik, not the stupid ideas of Narodnik.
Okay.
Okay.
It would be a departure.
No, there's still another reason.
There is still another reason why it was the data on peasant and handicraft economy that I prefer to take in illustration of the social democratic theory. It would be a departure from the materialist method were I, when criticizing the views of the friends of the people, to confine myself to contrasting their ideas with the Marxist ideas. One must, in addition to explain Narodnik ideas, demonstrate their material basis of our present social economic realities, illustrations and examples of economy of our peasants and handicraftsmen show what this peasant is, whose ideologists the friends of the people want to be. They demonstrate the bourgeois character of our rural economy and thus confirm the correctness of classifying the friends of the people as ideologists of the petit bourgeois. But this is not all. They show that there is the closest connection between the ideas and programs of our radical and the interests of the petty bourgeois. It is this connection which will become even clearer after a detailed examination of their program that explains why these radical ideas are so widespread in our society as to admirably explain the political servility of the friends of the people and their readiness for compromise.
Well, one important thing is that these people are of the legal press, so they have the czar's stamp of approval. Social Democrats are illegal press, so they don't have that czar's stamp of approval.
There was, lastly, one other reason for dwelling in such detail on the economies of precisely those sides of our social life where capitalism is least developed and from which Narodniks have usually drawn the material for their theories. A study and description of these economics was the simplest way to reply in substance to one of the most widespread objections to social democracy current among people here. Proceeding from the usual idea of capitalism contradicts the people's system and observing that the Social Democrats regard large scale capitalism as progressive, that it is large scale capitalism that they want to have as their basis in combating the present robber regime. Our radicals, without more ado, accuse the Social Democrats of ignoring the interests of the mass of peasant population, of desiring to put every
Mujik is like a village
mujik
person.
mujik through the factory melting pot, etc. All these arguments are based on the amazingly illogical and strange procedure of judging capitalism by what it really is, but the countryside by what it might be. Naturally, there could be no better reply to this than to show them the real countryside and its real economics. Anybody who studies these economics dispassionately and scientifically will be bound to admit that rural Russia constitutes a system of small scattered markets, of small branches of a central market, which regulate the social and economic life of separate small districts. And in each of these districts, we find all the phenomena that are in general peculiar to the social economic organization whose regulator is the market. We find the division of the once equal patriarchal direct producers into rich and poor. We find that the rise of capital, especially of merchant capital, which spins its web around the working people and sucks the lifeblood out of them. When you compare the descriptions of the peasant economy given by our radicals with precise first-hand data on rural economic life, you are astonished that there is no place in the criticized system of views for that mass of small hucksters who swarm in each of these markets. All these higglers and Schaffers, or whatever else the peasants call themselves in different localities, for all that mass of petty exploiters who dominate the markets and ruthlessly oppress the working people. They are usually simply brushed aside with the remark, these are no longer peasants but hucksters. Yes, you are quite right. These are no longer present, but try to treat all these traders as distinct group that is speaking in the precise language of political economy. Those who engage in commercial enterprise and who appropriate to whatever extent the labor of others, try to express in precise figures and economic strength of this group and part it plays in the entire economic life of the district, and then try to treat as an opposite group all those who are also are no longer present because they bring their labor power to the
Okay,
market.
so what the Narodniks are trying to say is like one group of people who are no longer peasants is because they're just like going to district by district and buying up all these all the stuff made by peasants. Like they're trying to smush that into the group who are no longer peasants because they can't afford to till their own land and they have to go work in a factory. Like the North and Lenin saying you can't treat both of those groups as the same.
Try to fulfill these elementary requisites of a dispassionate and serious inquiry, and you will get such a vivid picture of bourgeois differentiation that not a trace of the people's system myth will remain. This mass of small rural exploiters represent a terrible force, especially terrible because they oppress the isolated single toiler, because they fetter him to themselves and deprive him of all hope of deliverance. Terrible because this exploitation, in view of the barbarism of the countryside due to the low labor productivity characteristic of the system described, and to the absence of communications, and constitutes not only robbery of labor but also the Asiatic
Human dignity.
human dignity that is constantly encountered in the countryside. Now, if you compare this real countryside with our capitalism, you will understand why social democrats regard the work of capitalism as progressive when it draws these small scattered markets together into one nationwide market. When in place of the legion of small, well meaning bloodsuckers, it creates a handful of big pillars of fatherland when it socializes labor and raises its productivity, when it shatters the subordination of the working people to the local bloodsuckers and subordinates them to large scale capital. This subordination is progressive compared to the former, despite all the horrors of the oppression of labor, of gradual extinction, brutalization, and the crippling of the bodies of women and children, etc., because it awakens the mind of the worker. converts dumb into incoherent discontent into conscious protest, converts scattered, petty, senseless revolt into an organized class struggle for the emancipation of all working folk, and a struggle which derives its strength from the very conditions of existence of this large scale capitalism, and therefore can undoubtedly be counted upon certain success. In
I like.
reply
I
to
I just want to. I love the well-meaning bloodsuckers. Like
Yeah.
just putting the well-meaning in front of it. It's so funny.
Well, it's funny, and in India we can see this. Like, for example, in India, having like a big carpet factory is much better. You've seen the carpet exploit. Do you want to talk about the carpet exploiters that exploit the little boys?
yeah,
Talk about them. You've seen them.
yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, child labor is a
No,
problem
because
in
but
India.
the small carpet people,
Yeah,
you'd much rather have a big carpet factory
Okay.
that exploits like 10,000 people because they can all strike it for better conditions, right?
yeah, that is.
Do you want to continue?
Yeah, in reply to the accusation of ignoring the mass of the peasantry, social democrats would be quite justified in quoting the words of Karl Marx. Criticism has plucked the imaginary flowers which adorn the chain, and not the man should wear his fetters denuded of fanciful embellishment, but that he should throw off the chain and reach for the living flower. The Russian social democrats are plucking from our countryside, and the imaginary flowers that adorn it are combating idealizations and fantasies, and are performing the destructive work for which they are so morally detested by the friends of the people, not in order that mass of the peasantry shall remain in their present state of oppression, gradual extinction, and enslavement, but in order that the proletariat may understand what sort of chains everywhere fetter the working people, that they may understand how these chains are forged and be able to rise against them, to throw them off and reach out for the real flower. When they bring this idea to those representatives of the working people who, by virtue of their position, are alone capable of acquiring class consciousness and of launching a class struggle, they are accused of wanting to put the mujik
Yeah.
through the factory melting pot. And who are the accusers? People who themselves base their hopes for emancipation of the working people on the government and on society, that is, on the organs of the very bourgeois, which has everywhere fettered the working people. And these spineless creatures have the presumption to talk of the social democrats having no ideas.
Yay. Okay.
Ideals, sorry.
Ideals. Yeah.
So we finished part 3. What can you just what is a musique?
A mujik is basically okay. It's kind of like back. You know how in America they use the word white trash to explain people from West Virginia.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that. Back then in Tsarist Russia, to kind of explain the really poor peasant, they would call him a mujik. And Lenin is saying like the even the really poor peasant eventually will have to give up his. I mean, the allotment land. He has to buy his own freedom. Where on earth is he going to get money?
Mhm.
Eventually, he's going to have to give it up. And what's coming next is basically the factories, right?
Mhm.
So he's saying that it's like, so the Narodniks have this weird ideal of like the handicraft industry developing and skipping capitalism and some just really weird ideas that are not even worth discussing. And he's trying to explain that you can't just skip capitalism because industrialization concentrates the proletariats into one place, and then they'll understand each other's oppression, and together they can fight um fight
Wanted to get you
war.
on the camera. Sorry.
It's okay. But on the other hand, the irony of this is that this is Lenin still kind of repeating Marxist theory, because he hasn't gone to Siberia yet. And the irony of it is that there has like never been an industrial place where there has been a revolution. Like it is these peasants themselves that eventually does this. But Lenin realizes that in 1897, when he writes about the development of capitalism in Russia and what is to be done. Trotsky never realizes it. Trotsky's like, oh, we need to unite the white European working class with the Russian working
Mhm.
class, without realizing how racist the white European working class is. Like, in one of the meetings, Trotsky wants to do have one social worldwide socialism, and
Yeah.
Stalin says, "We Russians don't need the help of Europeans. We can do it themselves." And then there's like a broad applause.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the difference between, I guess, and okay, so the Narodniks want to kind of skip capitalism
Yeah.
and kind of build a handicraft economy, which is never going to happen. And you can't really skip capitalism because it's inevitable. It's going to come to your shores. Like it'll come to your shores, whether by boat,
And
by
it
boat.
should though. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing with industrialization. Like, it did bring us forward. Like, but like it also created this whole system of capitalism. Like, I like it just made certain people richer, but we also like it's like such a contradiction because we needed to
Well,
industrialize.
I'd rather have like I mean, I would rather have tractors go like plow the land than some 12-year-old kid
Yeah.
like dig that. And so that is the progressive part of capitalism.
Yeah.
But uh, but that is inevitable. Even if you don't want it, the British are coming at your shores to get your raw material. No matter what, they're gonna come and build the Kimberley gold mines and the Kolar gold mines.
Mhm.
And that's what the Social Democrats realize. And then the Social please, you're on TV. And then the Social Democrats also realize that yeah, so it's inevitable. Okay, so that's what we get between the Narodniks and the Social Democrats. Within
Yeah.
the Social Democrats, there's the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. The Mensheviks are very strictly adherent to Karl Marx, and well, not really. They just don't want a revolution, to be honest. They're like, okay, so what we should do is we should wait till Russia develops industrially like the United Kingdom, and you have like 90% of the people who become factory workers, then it's really easy to overthrow the Tsar. But Lenin in Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, shows why a third world country will never, like, that will never happen in Russia because it's destined to be a third world country. It'll never happen in India because it's destined to be a third world country. And as long as there's imperialism, you can't wait for these Menshevik conditions, you just have to create that Red Army with what you have.
So the Mensheviks were your reformers.
No, they weren't your reformers. They were like, oh, we should wait like another 50 years until Russia develops its factories.
Oh, so they
And-
didn't want to even reform. I was thinking like reform capitalism in a way or something. I don't know.
No. They thought that you had to have. They didn't trust the peasantry, so they thought that you just have to wait until all the peasantry like convert into the proletariat. But that only happens in first world countries that are colonizing other countries. Like in the colonized countries, that never happens. It'll
Yeah.
always be pre-industrial.
It's gonna be peasants. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what Lenin and the Bolsheviks realized. And so the revolution has to happen now because, like, whatever stupid conditions that the Mensheviks want
Yeah,
will never happen.
It's
And
not
in those areas where the conditions where the Mensheviks mentioned, where's the revolution?
yeah.
There has
I mean,
been.
so
So that,
Yeah. In India also, the government has
Nehru's government kind of tried it.
Nehru's government has
Had kind of tried it.
has tried to introduce lot of handicrafts.
No.
peasants.
No,
Yeah.
Nehru did not do that. Nehru was in industrial. It was Gandhi's stupid idea.
Yeah,
No, Nehru. No. Nehru
Okay,
industrialized.
Gandhi.
That was Gandhi's really stupid idea.
just to provide peasants, poor peasants.
No.
additional income.
Not really. It's Gandhi's like stupid. You should read the book South African Gandhi. It was just his stupid idea. But Nehru thankfully understood the importance of industrialization.
mhm.
Anyways, maybe 10 o'clock for us is better, or if there's no YouTube mess up. So I guess we'll see you guys next week at 10.
Yeah, so that would be 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we're going on to the next section. And I just closed my copy, so it's not it's the one right after part 3. So we're gonna start with let us. What is it?
I have really huge. Let us pass on to the this is the one where it gets really funny. Okay, this is where the Narodniks pretended. It's kind of like somebody from Manhattan wearing Texas cowboy boots and saying, "Hey, I'm one of you."
They went out
wear
like
gear.
peasant way and tried to get the. So I think that has a lot of pages, so it might be in 2 parts too. But we'll be getting to that next week. So
Okay, well, see you later. And if you guys are experiencing a lunar eclipse, happy eclipse.
bye.
Bye.